Hello, lovely friend. I am Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns.
We are doctors
and weight management and metabolic health experts.
And this is the Real Health and Weight Loss Podcast.
Good morning, gorgeous friend. I'm here this morning with my beautiful colleague, Dr. Mary, who you all know and hopefully love as much as I do, for this week's podcast. Gorgeous one, how are you?
I'm pretty good. I am. I've had some stressful events over the weekend regarding having to take my dog to the vet and other things, and have had an opportunity to practice my distress tolerance, an opportunity to practice my dealing with uncertainty and stress management. So it's been good. Very happy to say my dog is fine. And she's out of the woods now, but it was a really horrible, scary, icky weekend where we weren't sure whether or not she was exposed to a poisonous foxbite. And it sucked because there was nothing to be done except hurry up and wait. So, it was a really stressful, yucky time because I love my doggy. But we're good now, so that's lovely. Happy ending, yay, yay, yay. But that was quite preoccupying all weekend, I must say. How are you, lovely Lucy?
Yeah, I'm great. And, on the story of pets, we lost our cat for 5 days, and same, it's the uncertainty that we don't like, and you sort of just want time to hurry up so you know what you're dealing with. And the humans, we know, we talk about a lot, humans do not like uncertainty. If you gave the human a choice between knowing the outcome, even if that outcome is negative, they would prefer to do that than just be waiting.
Yeah, it is. It's very uncomfortable for us. One way that I reframed this was that it was an opportunity to practice my dealing with discomfort, given that there was nothing I could do. It was outside of my control, but we don't like it. Holding that, our brain constantly gets pulled into this disasterization, or it wants to be pulled into this, but what if. And we are designed psychologically. We tell stories all the time, and we love to try and predict the future, and we love to rehash and go over the past. And sometimes we can do both at the same time. And often we can create a lot of secondary distress for ourselves just by the stories that are going on in our heads. And being able to reframe the stories in our head is a fabulous skill to cultivate, because it can make your life so much better, even when you can't control the stressors in your life.
Absolutely. And you're right. It's our brain does this all the time. It likes to make sense of the world, and so it'll get bits and pieces of information, some of it true, some of it not, some of it, past information, some of it current information. It'll hash all that together and create a scenario to help us try and manage an unknown. And this is so unhelpful because we spend so long then worrying and trying to control an unknown, when actually it just often just the passage of time, it unfolds and it's nothing like the scenario you had invented.
Yes, indeed. And if we can cultivate that skill of distress tolerance, cultivate the skill of patience, and be mindful of what's going on in our heads, our lives can be so much better. And this is extremely relevant for you and I as lifestyle medicine doctors, as people keenly interested in empowering people to reclaim their health and lose weight healthily for good. That being able to manage the stories in your head, being able to reframe stressful situations, being able to manage your stress is actually key to metabolic health, because stress is bad for your metabolism. And stress, particularly chronic stress, like stress over a long period of time, it literally makes you gain weight. It literally can impair your blood sugar. It's implicated in obesity, in diabetes, as well as just poor health in general.
Indeed. Indeed. And I think there's, like everything, there's no just one reason for that. It's a combination of the hormones. As our listeners know, we love talking about metabolic hormones, but it changes your metabolic hormonal profile. And it also creates a situation where you will use tools like we talked about last week in emotional eating. You'll use tools to manage this state that is sometimes not that helpful for you.
Yeah. And it makes you more vulnerable to these tools. So if you're stressed about a situation, you're worried about anything that's causing you stress. And often we stress about things that are beyond our control. And in that situation, if you're stressed, your body physically changes. And these changes, these adaptations with a stress response evolved to help us deal with immediately life-threatening situations, like my child is going near a snake. There's a tiger there. I'm about to be attacked by, a threatening tribes person. We've evolved these situations that our body then gets primed to be able to navigate these situations and increase our chances of survival. And lots of physical changes happen, which did literally help us survive those situations. Our blood gets thicker, it gets more clotty. So if the tiger bites our leg off, we're less likely to bleed to death. Our blood pressure goes up, our heart rate goes up. We get quite vigilant. Our eyes get wider, our pupils get wider, we're vigilant, we're sort of looking for the threat absolutely everywhere, scanning around our environment. Blood sugar goes up, all these things happen, which is great to survive the tiger attack, but not great when it's happening just day in, day out long term because of the stressors of modern life. When that happens, it really sets you up for poor health. It interrupts, and that having that ongoing activation of your stress hormone pathway interferes with all of your other hormonal pathways, such as our sleep pathway, our melatonin and our circadian rhythms. Increased cortisol disrupts our ability to make and secrete normal amounts of melatonin, so it can upset our sleep, elevates our blood sugar. It actually literally makes us more insulin resistant. So it increases fat gain, but also not just does it increase fat gain. The two types of fat. We've got the subcutaneous fat, the fat under our skin, which is metabolically fairly inert and not that dangerous. And then there's the visceral fat, the fat that sort of packs around our organs, which is really metabolically dangerous. Elevated cortisol causes us to make more visceral fat relative to subcutaneous fat. So it sets you up in a fat gaining state, but also in a bad fat gaining state. It increases our appetite. We make more hunger hormones like ghrelin. It affects the way our hunger hormones work and also makes us crave comfort foods and hyperpalatable foods. So it's this whole unhelpful internal milieu which can really slow down, sabotage or reverse our attempts at getting healthier.
Absolutely. And I reckon, we see this a lot when people go, I'm eating well, I'm eating foods on point, everything's good, but I'm not losing weight, or my insulin levels are still high if they're monitoring those, or if you have type 2 diabetes, my blood glucose is still high, but my food's good, doc, my food's good. And I go, okay, and we'll, check, food seems to be fine. And then we talk about stress and it's like, oh yeah, I've got all this stuff going on. And I think sometimes people think though that they need to control their external environment. That's the only way that they can feel better, is to control the external environment, and therefore their internal environment will be better. But in fact, as we all know, that's often impossible.
There's certainly a lot you can do. You can look at your external environment and, let go of the things that aren't serving you, if you can let go of them.
Yeah, do an audit.
Totally. Is that toxic friendship really worth hanging on to? Can I let go of the perfectionism? Do my throw rugs always have to be perfectly creased all the time? I don't even have throw rugs, but, you can let go of things, but we cannot live some utopian stress-free life where there's nothing out there that's going to tax us or worry us, because things happen. Your dog get exposed to poisonous baits and your kids get sick and the weather is bad and things are always going to happen that we can't control outside of ourselves, but we do have more control than we realize on our internal environment, because we get to decide how we process our external environment. Our external stressors, we have quite a lot of control on how much we let them cause us that metabolically damaging physiological stress.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things we said this last week is, it's not willpower that you need, it's skills. So mindset skills for, managing emotional eating. And stress management is a skill. People, they think, if you talk about stress management, they go, well, I can't, I've got this terribly busy job and my husband's away a lot and I've got 4 kids and I have to ferry them around everywhere. And it's like, it's not that. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the skills in which you have to manage your mind, your internal state, so that you can do all those things that you need to do.
Yeah, and it does get better with practice. One of the most helpful things that you can do is have awareness. So have awareness to what your triggers and stressors are. So I can be very good at managing my stress in like a work environment, and I can be good at, understanding that I hate letting people down. And if I have any sort of perceive that I've dropped a ball, that I might be really quick to get down on myself, and I can have grounding strategies to sort of manage that stress. But I'm not as good at it with parenting. So if I feel like I've dropped some parenting ball, my inner critic jumps on me really hard, really fast, and that's much more difficult for me to manage my stress in that sort of situation, that scenario. I still can, and having awareness to the fact that the stories in my head are going to be stronger, my inner critic's going to be a bit more vicious in that setting, helps me regulate my internal environment. Awareness is not the only thing you need, but it is a really essential first step.
Yes, you can't change what you're not aware of. And I love that idea that you've recognized that there's different lenses through which we look at ourselves through. And the lens, as you said, the work lens, that's probably reasonably balanced by the sounds of things. The parenting lens, you tend to lean towards more of that self-criticism. And there's the thing about us as humans is there's so many different facets to our roles and to the way we think, the way we interact with other people. It's not just a blanket rule. Like, it's not just a blanket, you need more self-compassion in all areas of your life, or you need to improve this bit in your area of your life. What you'll notice is that in some areas of your life, you've got that nailed, and in other areas, there's a shortfall.
Yes. And creating your toolkit and having that variety of tools is really important. One tool that is really helpful is changing your perspective. You can get better at this with practice. If you can imagine 2 people that got in the same car crash, for example, and it was a bingle, no one was hurt. They were in a car crash and, both cars were bingled, super annoying, caused a delay. One person could interpret this as an absolute disaster. It's ruined their day. It's going to cost so much money. It's just, and their internal environment could be very, very, very unbalanced and stressed. Whereas another person in exactly the same situation could be interpreting this as like, wow, isn't it lucky no one was hurt? Oh my goodness, isn't this great? And could just be changing their perspective. And they're both in exactly the same situation, but they have an entirely different perspective. And one example, we can cultivate that more helpful perspective so that we can live our lives more healthily.
Absolutely. And I mean, the psychological term for this is cognitive reframing. One of the things we both spend a lot of time doing in our personal lives, but also for our beautiful, clients and members, is the concept of the gap and the gain. And as humans, we spend a lot of time. So the gap in the game concept is that you're in a position, you want to get to somewhere else, and there's, a path you have to kind of go along to get there, and we're constantly striving to get to that place. And so we focus on how close we are or how far away we are. And what we will do in that situation is often just look at our shortfall rather than looking at how far we've come. And it's so interesting that we do this for lots of things. And I guess some people have maybe a genetic predisposition to be the pessimist, and other people are the optimist. So the optimists tend to look at the gain more than the pessimists, who automatically will look at the gap. But again, that's just a learnable skill. Just like some people are naturally good at gymnastics, other people might have to cultivate that skill. Some people are naturally good singers, other people can learn it. You might naturally be an optimist and spend time in the gain, and your life seems to be a little less stressful, and other people have to cultivate that, but it's learnable.
It is learnable. And we're not talking about toxic positivity here of just like, putting your hand over your ears and going, la, 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 everything's fine, it's so great, this is all great, everything's great. It's not that at all. It's accepting reality as the reality, but still looking at it through this lens of, look at all the good things I've got, look at how far I've come, look at how much I've learnt. And then looking back with that lens and saying, because I've already come so far and already learnt so much, of course I can keep going and achieve those goals. Of course I can, bridge that gap between where I am and where I want to be. And gratitude is helpful here, but it's even more than gratitude. It's looking back at all the evidence of how fabulous you are, all the things you've done well, all the things that you have, and knowing that you can just keep moving forward.
Yeah. And again, for some people, that's harder than other people. I know that some people, you go, I'm sure at job interviews, people go, oh, tell us, your strengths. And some people can just prattle off a list of 5 things they're good at. And other people find that really hard. And again, we can look at, why do we do that? Why do we find it hard? And for lots of us, there were stories where, you didn't want to, again, Australians in particular, probably Brits are the similar. You don't want to be too big for your boots. You don't want to have the tall poppy. You don't want to look like you're better than everyone else. You don't want to step out of your station. You don't want to have tickets on yourself. Like, there's a million phrases to tell you, don't get ahead of yourself. Don't get too big for your boots.
I was always told as a kid, don't skite. Skiting was boasting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Be humble. Don't brag. And in fact, as far as a human, it's important to acknowledge that we do have skills. We are valuable. We're on this planet for a reason. People, need us, love us, want us for multiple reasons. And that's not only okay, it's imperative for you to acknowledge that.
Yeah. Self-effacing humour, look, it may be funny, but if you really internalise those stories, it's not going to be helpful for you. Not helpful in the long term.
Yeah. And, humility is helpful. I think, if I think about somebody who I reckon who does it really well, would be Ash Barty. So, most people will know Ash Barty is an Australian woman who won, tennis glory and winning Wimbledon not that long ago. And I think acknowledges where she's come from. She's had certainly, there's things that she's had to overcome. She's an Indigenous woman. We know that Indigenous people have many barriers placed in front of them, but always in all of her successes, she acknowledged her team, the people around her, rather than just going, I was just lucky, or I just fluked it, which is the other thing we'll sometimes do. Actually acknowledging that, no, what she's done was incredible, and she did it with support of other people.
Yes, she's awesome. It does come back to that. Another point with our human brains is that being our negativity bias, that we are very keen to hang on to all of the negative experiences, the negative thoughts, the criticisms that we get, the bad experiences. We hang on to those, and we tend to brush off the positive experiences, those compliments or our accomplishments, we do tend to brush them off and focus on the negative. And again, that's just how our brain has evolved to help us survive, our wild past. And now it is potentially unhelpful if left unchecked.
Indeed. And contributes, I think, to making us feel bad in a world that, where we can feel bad, at the drop of a hat. And if we think about health in general, like what, health is, we talk a lot about metabolic health. Obviously, we want to be metabolically well. But psychological health, mental health, whichever phrase you want to use it, is so critical to how we feel and how we feel when we feel good about ourselves, when we feel that we deserve good health, that we're then more likely to prioritize our needs rather than just putting them at the bottom of the ground, at the bottom of the pile, looking after everyone else first, making sure everyone else is okay. And, we'll give ourselves the dregs of the low-carb coffee.
That's right. Self-prioritization is also a helpful skill to cultivate. Another thing that is really helpful is a practice of active relaxation, where you spend a bit of time each day purposely activating your relaxation response. And this is really important in modern society where we've got a whole lot of things that will activate our stress response. We want to counteract that by also activating our neurological and hormonal relaxation response. The best way to do this is through some active relaxation like mindfulness, meditation. Listen to one of our fabulous hypnoses. That's great as well. And Lucy, you've got a beautiful analogy here, because we often hear people say, I can't meditate, I just can't switch my brain off, can't do it, tried it, didn't work, it's not for me. But what do we mean by, cultivating this practice?
Yeah, so we talk about a lot of, tools. You've mentioned the toolbox. So the tools that we've mentioned to help you manage your internal stress, so manage your response, if you like, to these external stresses. We've mentioned, journaling, gratitude, active relaxation, and meditation is one of those tools. And it's a really simple process, but it's actually a bit hard for our brain initially, because our brains are very stimulated in that, particularly this modern world. There is rarely a time where you've got nothing to do, because even when you do have nothing to do, you'll go to your phone, you might go to your to-do list, you might do the online shopping, you might play a game on it, you might check your Facebook, you might look at Instagram, you might answer an email. It's like we don't just ever sit there. And so when we start meditating, basically we're just sitting there and our brain goes, oh no, this is no fun. And it wants to run off and do things. The way I often describe your brain as being like a new puppy. We have a new puppy, so I'm currently very familiar with him. And when you are training your dog, it wants to so let's say you're training your dog to walk on a lead, it wants to run off and sniff everything. It's sniffing bushes all over the place. So your job as the trainer of said dog is to bring it back. And you just bring it back gently. You don't growl at it, because that's not going to be helpful. You don't tell the dog it's hopeless because it's still not walking. You just go, heel or come back or whatever your phrase is. And as we're walking along over time, the dog, soon stops sniffing bushes and just walks with you. But what a lot of people think is the only way they can meditate is to have no bushes in the first place. That's the only way they can train their brain. It's the only thing they can do, when in actual fact, the process of meditation is to bring your brain back to the present moment, to notice that it's wandering off and then go, oh, I notice I'm wandering off. I'll just bring it back to an anchor, which again, in the dog walking analogy, is the person. You anchor your dog back to you. And in meditation, the anchor can be your breath. It might be a mantra a sound, that's the Om one. It might be something you're looking at. It might be a candle. There's all sorts of ways to do it. Whatever suits you. But the thing is that you don't need to wait until there's no bushes.
Yeah, because that will never happen. Yeah.
It will never happen, no. And we want to be able to navigate all the bushes. We just want to be able to walk through and manage our minds and our bodies, because life is never, it's never going to be without some sort of external stressor. And if you're waiting for that day, it'll never come.
Yeah. And that analogy also works for those mindset skills that you're practicing, with the reframing, with the gain thinking, with the gratitude. Your brain will fly off back into this is terrible, I'm terrible. If only I could win Tats Lotto, that's the only way everything will ever be okay. Your brain will go back into those unhelpful stories again. And with awareness, you can just notice it and reframe and bring it back. And it'll fly off again. You notice it, you reframe it, you bring it back. And it gets better with practice. And the beautiful thing is, as you get better and better at this, your whole quality of life improves, even when life is still stressful.
Indeed. Absolutely. And one of our favorite sayings is that you become less reactive when you create some time between the stimulus and your response. You've got time to make a decision that you're happy with. And again, I think one of the markers of good health is going to bed, with that sort of satisfaction that you've had a good day, that it was a job well done, rather than going to bed with regrets and guilt and shame and all of that stuff. That's unhelpful.
You're in charge of it. You own everything inside your internal environment. It's all yours. It's no one else's. And you can assign whatever meaning you want to your day because it belongs to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, it's a skill. It's learnable, and that's what we want for you. So, lovelies, keep practicing your skills, sharpen your tools, and, you too will be able to navigate the seas of stress.
Bye-bye, gorgeous one.
See you later. The information shared on the Real Health and Weight Loss podcast, including show notes and links, provides general information only. It is not a substitute, nor is it intended to provide individualised medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor can it be construed as such. Please consult your doctor for any medical concerns.